this evening will be by Reverend Dan Prout. Following that will be a Pledge of Allegiance by three young ladies who are part of the American Heritage Group. And at this point, if Reverend Prout, if you go ahead and start, appreciate it.
Wasn't it nice that the rain stopped just for us?
Yes, sir.
You know, the founding fathers referred to God often as providence. It's not because they didn't know his name, but to them that was a very meaningful definition of God. Providence came from the idea of provision. And the word provision is the combination of two words, provision. It means forward-looking. And God is always forward-looking. And think of all the things that he has done in preparation for us to be able to be here. Gasoline, steel for our cars, and whatever else they use in cars these days. Food, our refrigerators are full. We have electricity, hydroelectric power. He invented all these things and prepared them for us. So let's give thanks. My God of heaven, we thank you for your provision for us, that you continue to provide whether we acknowledge you or not. And as we lift our eyes from the horizontal into the vertical, we just want to pause and say thank you. Thank you for the freedoms in our country. Thank you for those who work to protect us in elected office, in services, even serving across the seas and other lands in our military. We thank you and ask that you would bless them. And now, Lord, would you bless us tonight? Would you open our ears to new understandings? And would you make us a blessing to others? In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, these girls, I didn't know a whole lot about American Heritage Girls, but I was doing a little bit of digging, and tonight, by the way, that was Grace Collins, Kaylee Olson, and Lily Gillette that led us tonight. They did an awesome job. They have a motto that I read that I thought was pretty good. It's building women of integrity through service to God, family, community, and country. And I believe we just witnessed that service to community. And I think they did. That was good. Thanks again, ladies. We have a lot to cover tonight over the next couple hours. In short, the candidates have been provided 4 initial questions by the committee that represents tonight's forum. In addition, you'll find 3x5 cards on your seats as you came in. Those are to be used for questions for the candidates. I'd ask that you write legibly, don't write like I do. And then if you wouldn't mind just passing them to the outside or as far outside as you can. We'll have people picking them up and down the sides. Please understand we have a limited time and we'll do our best to present each of those questions. We definitely want to hear from the community and I know the candidates do as well. One thing I forgot. If you wouldn't mind looking at the back of your program, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. First off is are the notes on the U.S. Constitution classes. We've had classes going here. They're by the they're put on the curriculum is by the Institute on the Constitution, presenting the American view of law and government. These classes have been free aside from just the cost of the materials. We have a booth somewhere somewhere out here. Forget where it's at, back over that direction, I think, okay, over here, where there's more information and you can sign up. We have classes that are going to be starting again here shortly. We've had a number of people who have taken the class. In fact, I'd actually like to see how many are here tonight. I've been told we have over 100, or I've had over 100, but those that have taken the class here, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Nice, that's good to see. Perfect. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is right below it, is this Sunday, Sheriff Mack will also be teaching a class. This will be down by the, be put on by the Sutter Buttes Tea Party at the Church of Glad Tidings. It's called Sheriff and the Citizen. And it'll be an all-day class. I believe it's from 9 to 4 p.m. And there's information back here on that. One thing that isn't on here that I do also want to note is that we will have, there's going to be an opportunity to spend a little bit more time with Sheriff Mack tomorrow, about at 1 o'clock, I believe, is when we're doing it. It's a luncheon. This will be at the Humpty Dumpty restaurant upstairs, and it's going to be a no-host informal event with probably room for close to 50 people. So if you have questions that you didn't get answers to, that you want to pursue a little further or be able to talk with Sheriff Mack, this will be a good opportunity, but it is first come, first served.
What time?
I believe that is at 1 p.m.
Till closing.
Till closing.
And if they're not there right away, they will give the tables.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Cheryl reminded me that they will give the tables away if we happen to not have 50. That'll fill up, so they'll need it. But we just recommend be there at least by 1 o'clock. Tonight's Sheriff Candidate Forum is sponsored by the Nevada County Tea Party Patriots, which was formed for constitutional education purposes and does not endorse any candidate. The comments made by any candidate or participant in this program are not necessarily the opinions of the Nevada County Tea Party Patriots. We support constitutional limited government, fiscal responsibility, and free markets. This forum looks to broaden our awareness of the candidates running for office of Nevada County Sheriff, as well as deepen our community's understanding of the importance of a constitutional sheriff. The position of sheriff carries enormous responsibilities and policy directives that demand full attention and participation of our community. It is our sincere hope that tonight will be informative and educational towards these goals. One thing I do also want to note is you did probably see a handout on a constitutional, or why a constitutional sheriff. This is something that we can look at. You can look at it at a later time, but it's a pretty good history of where a constitutional sheriff came about and why it's important that we have a constitutional sheriff. So just draw you to that attention. The Nevada County Tea Party Patriots regret that Sheriff candidate Bill Smethers will not be present at the forum tonight. Although in November 2017, all candidates were involved in selecting the date for the forum, apparently the date was not conveyed to the candidate Smethers' campaign committee. This resulted in our forum not being put on his campaign schedule and the subsequent discovery that it was in conflict with a fundraising event that's occurring tonight. Despite our substantial efforts to accommodate a compromise to allow him to keep both commitments, the Smethers Campaign Committee has advised that he will not be attending tonight's forum. However, to give forum candidates the opportunity to have some input from all candidates, the Nevada County Tea Party Patriots Board of Directors decided to provide all candidates simultaneously several pre-planned questions in advance. The board requested candidate Smethers submit his written response and opening statement. As requested, candidate Smethers has done so by providing a sealed envelope for confidential purposes, which I have actually just received. And the winner is. Yeah.
Should have had somebody.
Are you
In addition, yesterday, approximately 11:30, we received a call from Benjamin Perkins, the campaign manager for Sheriff candidate Shannon Moon. He indicated candidate Moon had a family scheduling conflict and would not be able to attend tonight's forum. Mr. Perkins did request also to be able to submit written responses to our pre-planned questions. At this point, as requested, these have not yet been received. I know I just got an update that apparently we've checked twice in our mailbox and haven't received them, but I was also told there is plans to possibly put these out either on our website or at least make them available. So we want to make it fair from that perspective. Oh, good morning, Cheryl, thanks. Actually, Sheriff Smothers, his candidate Smothers' responses are available to be reviewed this evening if you'd like, at one of the tables. I think over there where Sue's at on that side. It's my privilege to introduce our moderator for this evening. A former two-term sheriff of Graham County, Arizona, he is nationally renowned for his participation in the landmark 1997 case, Mack v. United States, in which he successfully challenged the constitutionality of provisions in the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act. Fighting all the way to the United States Supreme Court over a 3-year period, they won a landmark 5-4 split decision based on the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Inducted into the NRA Hall of Fame, he has served as Communications Director for Gun Owners of America and is currently the President and founder of the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. Currently, with nothing else to do, he is a candidate for Congress in Arizona's 8th District. Please help me warmly welcome our moderator this evening, Sheriff Richard Mack.
It's more than a privilege to be here. I thank you for it. I don't need those anyway. Those are his. I am not running for Congress anymore because the race just was 3 weeks ago. No, I did not win. It was a special election to take the place of one of the congressmen who got a lot of publicity about when Me Too was happening. About all the accusations about sexual complaints against some of the congressmen. He abruptly resigned. I knew him, he was a friend of mine. I was really surprised at what happened. But the governor called a special election and I did run. I thought it would be a time for a constitutional conservative to win because there was about 4 or 5 mainstream Republicans. You know, the Republicans that just signed on to the budget in Washington, D.C., those kind of Republicans. So I thought maybe people were tired of those types of Republicans, the John McCain Republicans and the Jeff Flake Republicans. And so I thought maybe this would be good for a good time to have that happen. It didn't happen, it didn't work, and I was rejected by the Republicans for the most part. But we move on, and we will continue to try. And we will continue to work for liberty and freedom because precious little children that are around here, the 3 that came up and did the pledge, that's why. And I have 14 of those precious little ones across the Southwest, and they're called my grandchildren. And so America has got to make a huge comeback. And there's something else that you'll see about me if you look it up, if you look me up on the internet. I have never in my life advocated violence. I never have, and I never will. Would I if we had to go to war? Yes, but I'm still not going to say I want to do that. I don't want to do it. I don't want to fight. I don't believe that we should be in Afghanistan. Does anybody even know why we've been there for 16 years now? And I'm telling you, we have got to do something different in this country. And love the Arizona State sweatshirt there, buddy. I live real close to there. I live in Gilbert, Arizona. I'm from Safford, Arizona, where I grew up. The most astonishing thing that happened to me growing up was we won the state high school football championship I hate to tell you this, in 1969. Okay? Quite a while ago. But it definitely was a highlight of my life. The other highlight of my life was each time one of my children were born, the day I married my precious wife, and we've been married for 43 years. And one wife, how about that? And then when I was sheriff, something astonishing happened. I actually won. That was a miracle. I hadn't lived in the community for 12 years. I had never been in law enforcement in that community. I graduated from BYU up in Utah and tried to get in the FBI. My father was FBI. I wanted to follow his footsteps. That never worked out. I hired on with Provo Police, worked there 11 years, and then a couple of crazy people told me to move home and run for sheriff. I told them they were crazy. This is the first time my wife agreed with me that her parents were crazy. And she wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then one night my wife and I did all the pros and cons as to why we could not run for sheriff. There was about 23 cons, only 2 positives or pros. And we sent that down to her parents. We thought that might have an impact. It didn't. And about 3 weeks later, for some reason, we moved home and ran for sheriff. And it was quite a miraculous election. But we never knew why the miracle was there until 1993 when we watched Bill Clinton sign into law the Brady Bill in November of 1993. I did not tell my wife, oh, I'm going to sue to stop that. I had absolutely no intention of suing the Clinton administration. And I guess you might say, I sued the Clinton administration and I live to tell about it. Another miracle. And so at the beginning of my next term, this took place, of my second term, I really found out I was going to sue them when 3 agents of the BATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, the agency that regulates the Second Amendment. Where they came up with that authority, we'll never know, will we? But that's what Washington, D.C. does. And so when they came, now I knew what we were supposed to do. We were being commandeered and ordered by the federal government, the Clinton administration, to perform their background checks and to enforce the Brady Bill for them under a threat of being arrested if we failed to comply. And all that's true. I'm not making any of that up. If some of you came up and told me that, I would probably not have believed it, but it was true. And it was a document that they handed us that told us that we had to enforce the Brady Bill for the feds. And I was the only sheriff in the United States to stand up and say no. Then, luckily for me, 6 other sheriffs joined the lawsuit after that, and Sheriff Prince from Montana and I ended up at the United States Supreme Court together in December of 1996. We went through the district courts, circuit courts, and you know how we fared at the circuit court, right? Because it's the 9th Circuit. So Prince and I were both in the 9th Circuit. We lost, of course, there. And then because other sheriffs had also filed the lawsuit across the country, one sheriff from Louisiana and Texas, they both got consolidated into the 5th Circuit, and the 5th Circuit is located in New Orleans. New Orleans gave the exact opposite ruling that the 9th Circuit gave, which guaranteed us a trip to the United States Supreme Court, and because they had to straighten out the circuits. And so on December 3rd of 1996, we appeared at the United States Supreme Court. It was an awesome, miraculous experience for this small town little Safford boy. And then on June 27, 1997, the United States Supreme Court, as mentioned in a 5-4 split decision, the decision being written by Justice Scalia, said that the sheriffs were correct, that the federal government has... Let me tell you one thing they said. This is Justice Scalia writing for the majority. And he said, "We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction." Don't you wish your state knew that? And bottom line with all of this is even before I was sheriff, I started studying Who's the supreme law enforcement authority? In our state, in our country, in our county, in our cities, wherever. And I bet even a chief of police would tell you that it's the one that's elected. It's the one that directly answers to the power source. The people. We, the people, appoint the sheriff. Other politicians appoint the chief of police. And I'm glad we have good chiefs of police. We have chiefs of police that are members of the CSPOA. We hope all of you become members of the CSPOA. All of you can be a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Because why? Because we, the people, are in charge. You have to be part of this. How are you going to know what your sheriff's supposed to do? How are you going to know what your chief of police is supposed to do? You have to get involved in this process. It doesn't work without you. Do you know that we, the people, bestow all power in this country? That we are the final say in just about every criminal or civil matter in this entire country. We decide. Government officials need our permission to exist. We do not need theirs. But we need those with the courage and the wherewithal to interpose on our behalf. And we've seen that a lot in this country. And we have sheriffs that have been awarded the Constitutional Sheriff of the Year. Our first one was Sheriff Glenn Palmer from Grant County, Oregon. That's who Lavoy Finicum and the Bundys were driving to go visit when Lavoy was murdered. And I believe it will be pointed out in court, now that Jeanette Finicum is suing the federal government and Oregon State Police, I believe it will be proven that he was murdered. And after I've watched the video numerous times, I believe that he was. It was an unjustified shooting. Of course, the law enforcement officials that investigated said it was okay. I don't believe it. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But we will see. Next one after him was Sheriff Jeff Christopher from Delaware. And he fought the entire state. And if you remember one Bo Biden, God rest his soul, Bo Biden was the Attorney General for the state of Delaware. And they said that the sheriff now, get this, Chief, the sheriff has no arrest authority. And yet, the first state in the Union, Delaware, in their constitution, it says that the sheriff is the conservator of the peace for the county. How is it that you can have the authority and power to be the conservator of the peace and you can't arrest anybody for violating the peace? Astonishing. And he fought that all the way to the Delaware Supreme Court, and of course, he lost.
What?
Because they don't know and understand the Constitution there. And they don't understand the office of sheriff. They don't understand the power of we the people. And so then after that, I think maybe you've heard of this sheriff before. Sheriff David A. Clark Jr. was the CSPOA Sheriff of the Year in 2013. And then after that, Sheriff, she's on the front of my book, Pamela Elliott from Texas, from Edwards County, Texas. She ended up arresting the city manager and the mayor in the city. And she didn't have her deputies do it. She went and arrested them for corruption and dereliction of duty and misappropriation of funds. She arrested them. Though that usually goes overlooked. And I'm wondering, too, that on one other Sheriff of the Year from Michigan, Sheriff Dar Leaf, who is really strong, very strong, powerful constitutional sheriff. One other sheriff I want to tell you about before we turn it over to this forum. Sheriff Brad Rogers, probably, of all the sheriffs in this country, he was probably the consummate constitutional sheriff. Because one of his constituents, who does not vote, because it's his religious belief that he not vote. He's an Amish farmer who did not believe in pasteurizing his milk because they don't use technology to destroy what God made by nature. It's against their religion. This man's name was David Hostetler. And the FDA came in, FDA, Washington, D.C. bureaucracy, came in and did spot inspections with no probable cause, no warrants, no reason to be there really, except they're just doing spot inspections. No one has complained, no one has been hurt by his products. And they go in and do spot inspections. Well, what do the Amish do? They say, come on in. Yeah, you want to come in my property? Come on in. So then, about after the 6th time in 6 months that they get these spot inspections, he passed all of them. They even took his milk and took it to the FBI lab and analyzed it. A+ again. Passed everything. So they're getting tired of not being able to arrest him, and so they kept going after him and after him. Finally, he called the sheriff and he says, I'm a little bit tired of this. He goes, what? Sheriff didn't know about any of this. So he goes out, talks to the Amish farmer. This is, again, Brad Rogers from Elkhart County, Indiana. And he tells the FDA, after he checks all this out, not to come back into his county unless they get his permission. And they said, if you come back and bother this man again, I'll arrest you for trespassing.
Yeah.
And so, that didn't sit well. And the FDA writes this big old long letter, this attorney for the FDA writes this big old long letter telling him how the supremacy clause of the Constitution gives them the authority and the power over the states, and the sheriff has no authority over them. And guess what key provision they left out when they quoted the supremacy clause? The part that said supremacy must happen in pursuance of the Constitution. They left that part out. Lying! Intentionally leaving that part out. When Sheriff Rogers showed that to me, he sent it to me, and he said, hey Mac, I want you to help me write a letter to respond to these guys. It was so fun writing that letter. Because we absolutely demolished this lawyer. 2 small town sheriffs kicking the heck out of that lawyer. And I told them about other cases, such as the Mac Prince case. And we talked about the Lopez decision and the Carroll decision, or the Bond decision, Carroll Bond. And we talked about several others where the role of the federal government has been diminished. If you want to see an amazing case where the role of the federal government is diminished, you want to see the Mac Prince case. And this document's over on my table. I highly recommend that you get to know this case. Look up the whole case and read the whole thing. This is just a highlighted version. It's an amazing case. So then they threatened to arrest Sheriff Rogers. And Sheriff Rogers said, maybe I'll go, maybe I'll get arrested, maybe I won't. But if he said, if I do, my wife's under strict orders to call you first. So I said, Brad, we got your back. The CSPOA will back up any sheriff all across this country who stands for the Constitution. We've done it several times. Turns out that right after we sent them that letter, Sheriff Rogers signed it. I didn't sign it, he did, but I helped compose it. The FDA sent him an email and sent a letter to David Hostetler saying everything had been dropped. They haven't been back in 4 years. Okay? Now, I'm asking everybody in this country, why would you be afraid of being that kind of a sheriff? Why would your citizens not want a sheriff that is willing to stand for freedom? I'm actually a high school teacher right now. I teach high school government. The actual class is called Constitution Government. And they have to memorize 1 sentence out of the Declaration of Independence. Well, actually 2. The last sentence in the Declaration of Independence and this one. That, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Why do you have a sheriff? Why do you have a dog catcher? Why do you have a mayor, a city council, a county court recorder? I don't care who it is, from the dog catcher all the way down to the president. And that's where I think the order really is. And I do like Trump for the most part, but I'm really disappointed that he signed that legislation.
Yeah.
He should have vetoed it, shut the government down. If you're not going to follow the Constitution, if you're not going to stop spending, then go home. And I would have loved to have them shut it down and go home until they figure it out that we're tired of politics and we want somebody to stand for what's right in Washington, D.C. So Republicans have totally let us down big time on this round again. But bottom line is, wouldn't you want the sheriff to be this check and balance for you. When they're coming in and without probable cause, without due process, without warrants, and they're violating the Bill of Rights and violating your rights and coming in and trying to do a fishing expedition to find a reason to take you to prison. And he stood up for the lowliest of these people, and that would be an Amish farmer who doesn't even vote and doesn't do donations to the sheriff. And what I say to Brad Rogers, God bless him, and God bless the other sheriffs in this country who have stood up for the people they serve, because they have one purpose, that to secure these rights. That's what they're there for. They're there to protect your God-given rights. They're there to protect liberty. They're there to protect freedom. They're there to protect your family and to make sure that your rights are secure. And all this big debate in Parkland, Florida, and all across the country, do you know what government's only role in reference to the Second Amendment? Do you know what it is? The only role that government has regarding the right to keep and bear arms is to make sure that it is never infringed. Good. So we will move along and see if we have a candidate that is worthy to be called a constitutional sheriff. I hope he is. I have a real good feeling about the people who are running for office, who have been here, who are here tonight. As a matter of fact, could we actually have anybody and everybody who is now a public official here or running for office, please stand? I know there's others. What are you running for? Yeah.
I'm Mary Ann Davis, running for County Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters.
Way to go.
I'm Ann Driver. I'm on the Penn Valley School Board.
Way to go, my mom was.
I'm Jim Driver, and I'm on the Western Gateway Park Board.
Oh,
My name's Glenn Jennings, and I'm running for District Attorney.
And I'm running for County Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters.
so,
One more.
what? Sorry?
Two more.
Back in the back.
I'm Polly Halstead.
No, I'm back in the back. Yeah, you.
District 4 Supervisor for Nevada County.
Wonderful.
I'm Polly Halstead. I'm running for Nevada City Council.
As mentioned, there's two candidates that decided not to be here tonight. We're not going to go into the reasons why, but there is one who has the courage to be here. And we're going to get right into the questions. You know, I've done a lot of these. I just did run for Congress. Sometimes they gave us the questions beforehand, sometimes they didn't. I liked it either way. I think if I had to weigh it out, I would prefer not even knowing beforehand, you know, because the other candidates will stumble, and I never did. But also, though, research can be valuable on addressing some of these questions. So tonight, the first question for future sheriff, Chief of Police. Future sheriff, folks.
Yeah.
Chief of Police Foster, who's running for sheriff. The first question is, if the federal or state governments or the United Nations were to implement a policy of door-to-door gun confiscation, which, by the way, don't anybody ever tell me it hasn't happened in America or it couldn't happen in America. It already has numerous times.
Exactly.
So get off of that one. You obviously haven't done research. They've done them in numerous places. Most recently, probably New Orleans. During Katrina. Not only did they go door to door, they beat up an old lady who refused to give it up, and they did not give receipts, and they did not return them. Okay? You lost your gun, period. They did it on waterways, they did it in homes, and they said, we don't have time to do receipts, and they didn't, and they just took them. When people needed them the most, they were out taking them. So, what is your answer on that first one, Chief? And time constraints, what are they?
None.
No, actually there are.
Oh, really?
2 minutes for an answer? Okay. For each candidate, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Test, test.
We just got one.
Card?
Statement first.
Oh, yeah, let's opening statement first, sorry. Okay, yeah, very good. Sorry, my mistake. He has an opening statement first, then we'll get to that question.
Well, I'm John Foster, and I am going to be your next sheriff. You know what? I am very impressed that all you are here tonight to want to learn about your sheriff's philosophy, the vision, and what he or she has planned. So I don't know why the other candidates didn't show up, but I want to let you know that there are going to be at least 5 other candidate forums. So show up to those, ask those hard questions, because remember, I work for you. You're my boss, and so you need to know your candidates. So as far as an opening statement, you can time me now. So, just a little bit about family, my career, and my vision for the Sheriff's Office. I'm fortunate that I have 2 sons that serve in the military. One is overseas right now. I have 1 son in law enforcement. My wife, Eileen, who's in the back, we've been married for 33 years, and we're very proud that we have 3 of our sons serving our country. As far as my career, I've been in law enforcement for 35 years. Of that career, 27 years have been in leadership positions. I started off in Palo Alto, did a host of assignments, promoted many times, left Palo Alto as a lieutenant and went to Oregon where I was second in command. I was at Corvallis Police Department, where I oversaw both investigations and our patrol division. And then I was blessed to be your Grass Valley Police Chief for almost 18 years. And during that time, I was very proud of the culture shift that I was able to lead during my time as chief. We created better services, enhanced community policing, and a deep sense of trust with the community. And how do we do that? Well, I recognize the most #1 asset, your employees, giving them the tools, the resources they need to do the job. Equipment, mentoring, and a deep sense of ethical leadership. So that's what I want to bring to the Sheriff's Office. I want to bring a deep sense of trust and ethical leadership to the Sheriff's Office. And with that, I will provide you with my defined leadership and proven track record. We're going to keep Nevada County safe, and how we're going to do that is we're going to work with our public safety partners, our prosecutors, to hold those accountable that want to cause us harm in our community. But at the same time, we need to help those people that want to break the recidivism of crime. So we're going to create more best practice programs within the jail to help those people that want to stop committing crime to get back into a lifestyle that is something that we expect. Finally, we're going to professionalize the department, and we're going to embrace our employees. It's a difficult job with law enforcement, and as a leader, I need to provide them the resources and tools they need to provide the job. So with that, I'm hoping after tonight that I will convince you that I am the most qualified and the best fit to be your next sheriff of Nevada County. Thank you.
And now that question, if federal, state, or UN came in to implement policies of door-to-door gun confiscation, what would you do?
Well, Sheriff Mack, I'm going to give you credit. I would model what you did. First of all, the Second Amendment. It provides us the ability to bear arms and not to be infringed on. The Fourth Amendment provides us the ability to not have intrusive government as far as search and seizure. And the Fifth Amendment provides the opportunity to provide you protection of your personal property. So what I would do, Sheriff Mack, is what you did. I would defend the Constitution of unconstitutional rules and overbearing government.
Okay, if the federal government came to Nevada, you know what? I read a book called The Law by Frederick Bastiat. If you don't have that, get it. I have a lot of them. It's required reading for my students. It should be for everybody. It talks about two evils in there against citizens. There's two enemies of government, of the people. One is government, the other are criminals. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. So it seems like we're asking the head law enforcement officer of the county what he's going to keep doing about government problems. If the federal government came to Nevada County to serve a warrant or make an arrest of a county citizen without informing you of their intentions, what, if anything, would you do?
I have my own mic now.
Oh, good.
So here's the scoop. You know, law enforcement has to have great relationships with their partners in law enforcement. And as police chief in Grass Valley for almost 18 years, I developed great relationships with our local law enforcement, our state law enforcement, and our federal law enforcement, to the point that I knew the name and the relationship for the special agent in charge of the FBI, the special agent in charge for the DEA, our attorney general. So the point is you develop that relationship. They shouldn't be coming into your county without you having the permission of them coming in. But it really comes down to professional courtesy, because there's some safety issues involved. And so if they came in when I was police chief and they actually served a warrant or did something, it would be an error, because they made a mistake and they know that they should be contacting me first. So what I would do is hopefully we'd make it a learning lesson and we'd move forward in a positive manner.
Very good. Go ahead. I can tell you, if I ever really disagree with something he says, I'm gonna let you know. And if he and I get in a debate, probably be better than the one we would have had.
Well, I've read most of your books, so I don't know.
So he knows the answers. You know, where the federal government has proper jurisdiction, I invite them to come in. It's just that their jurisdiction is very limited. Very limited. But even with that, though, I hope that your sheriff will have a good relationship with them. I don't want, again, I don't want to make fights or make enemies where we don't have to. And if they'll respect him as sheriff, they should be doing it anyway. So, if the state of California, or government, attempted to enforce sanctuary state policy in Nevada County, sorry, what, if anything, would you do as sheriff?
Well, a lot of people call it sanctuary cities, sanctuary states. But what happened is the law was passed, which they call the Trust Act. And with that, there's regulations in place that we must follow the law. But what people have to understand is local law enforcement isn't in the business of immigration, has never been in the business of immigration enforcement. We've left that to the federal government. But at the same time, what people need to understand is criminals, it doesn't matter immigration status. We're going to work to apprehend people. But you also have to recognize that people, regardless of their status, need to fill the sheriff's office. They can come report a crime, whether they're a victim or a suspect. I mean, a victim or a witness, sorry, not a suspect. But, you know, the thing is also with the Trust Act, we still have the ability to notify ICE of people that are convicted of serious felony crimes. So the point is that we're not in the business of immigration. That's the federal government. But we are in the business of putting people in jail that commit crimes.
Very good. Chief Foster's correct. The Constitution does delegate grant to the federal government the responsibility of securing our borders. Bang up job they've done there? Not really, but that is their jurisdiction. Can we take it back?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. We delegated it to them, we can undelegate it to them. The 13 original states created the federal government. We are the creator of the federal government. And what does the 10th Amendment say? We delegated to them certain authorities and powers. Okay? Only a supervisor can delegate to the employee. Okay? It's a very key word. Okay, number 3. If the state of California attempted to enforce sanctuary state policy.
Number 4.
No, we just did that one. Sorry. 4th one. Man, we're getting through this too quickly. If the federal government attempted to enforce federal marijuana laws in Nevada County, what, if anything, would you do as sheriff? Well, let me make sure I understand. Marijuana is legal here, but maybe remind us to what extent.
Well, the federal government still has marijuana as being legal. The voters of the state of California, whether you agree or not, have legalized both recreational and medicinal marijuana. My role as sheriff is to enforce the law. So what my strategy is, I want to work with the federal government, which you just saw recently in the newspaper of one recent arrest, is, you know what, the people that want to follow the law in the state of California, the ones that want to grow cannabis as a product, let them do that. But you know what? Let's go after those bad folks that are cartel types, that families are being held hostage in Mexico, and they're making men come here to work, and they're violating our land, they're trespassing, they're dealing with our streams and pollution, and let's go after them with the federal government's assistance. But the ones that are following state law, leave them alone.
Yeah. Have you got the cards? You've already edited or something like that?
Any trick questions?
Okay. In my Supreme Court case, the first judge that I went to was Judge John Roll. He was later murdered at the Gabby Giffords assassination attempt in Tucson. But his decision on the Brady bill was the most powerful of all of them. Of all the judges that heard the case, his was the most powerful, more so than even Scalia's. And he actually said, and I have his quote in this little book about the decision, he actually said, quote, "Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the law, subjecting himself to possible sanctions." Some of these have been pretty, the questions that we asked you were pretty solid about, you know, if the UN and federal government and others come in to confiscate guns. Even if they make a law doing that, it appears that you would oppose that. What my question is to you, are you going to be able to recognize when laws of the state are in complete and very stark contrast with the Constitution, and will you uphold and defend your oath, or will you enforce those laws? When a law is obviously in conflict with the Constitution or Bill of Rights?
Great question. So, you know, here's the challenge. We're in for some very troubling times, some very difficult times in our nation, and the federal government has overstepped their constitutional authority. The dilemma the sheriff has is I'm your last stand. And my role as sheriff is to uphold and defend the Constitution. Now, the good news is, such as your organization and the Oath Keepers, is that there's wisdoms in many counselors. And I believe you even recommended that you're having county council hopefully be on board with you as far as what you should do and not do. So the challenge that I have as sheriff is to uphold the Constitution first and foremost. And if a law, the example was going to people's houses to confiscate guns, it's unconstitutional, and I won't allow it.
Well, by the way, where's your wife? Oh, there she is. That was a terrific answer he just gave. Don't forget it. Remind him of it all the time.
She will.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one has kind of always bothered me a little bit about California. Issuing concealed carry permits. Okay? Bottom line, I'm actually against permits.
Well,
All right.
all right.
I really believe that. However, I'm also pragmatic enough about it and saying, I don't want you carrying because there's always going to be some cop or somebody that's going to try to haul you off to jail and make an example of you because you didn't have your permission slip from government to have it. So the question of one of your constituents here is, how will you, as sheriff, how will you fulfill your responsibility to issue concealed carry permits?
Well, the law is pretty clear on the regulations to issue concealed weapons permits. And while I'm going into the sheriff's office because I think there's things that need to be changed, the current process for concealed weapons permits within the county is working well, and I plan to follow the processes in place.
There was about 5 questions on that.
Any
people
trick-
aren't concerned about it.
Trick ones?
No? I don't think so.
Still looking for that trick question.
Just that one from your wife, but I'll get
Turn off the lights. Lights.
Yeah. Oh, much better. Let there be
Okay.
What is the normal for that? You said you go by what is in place. Is it shall issue on, whether you're going to have a good reason, carrying lots of money?
Yeah, what determines that?
Yeah, what is it?
We are not a shall issue state. However, personal protection applies.
That's right. And you could make it a shall issue, but you know what? When I was sheriff, there were some people who had guns that were not safe with them. In fact, the only shooting incident that where I should have actually shot somebody, involved somebody who was a meth addict. His son was right next to him. I just couldn't pull the trigger. I exposed myself to danger because of that little rule. Now looking back, I'm glad I did, but I took that guy's guns away from him. He said he was going to sue me and really go after me. I said, until you go to rehab, I'm not giving them back. And I stood by that. He was a danger with him. He shouldn't have had him. And he finally completed it, and I gave him back. But it took about a year. And he came into my office, and I was always like this when he came in. I didn't trust that guy at all. Okay, do you support body cameras for your deputies?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I've mentioned this a couple times. Here's it's an effective tool. It's a good tool for the toolbox. Why would you not give people the technology, the tools they need to effectively perform their job? The dilemma that we have with the current sheriff is that he doesn't support body cameras. And the problem is, and the deputies are great deputies, but people question, are they hiding something? So as sheriff, we will have body cameras. Matter of fact, I will even wear one.
Okay, this is a really good one. This is, of course, I had to answer this a bunch, and I'm a former school resource officer and former detective and worked in the schools a lot, and I teach in the schools now. So my perspective on the school shootings, specifically Parkland in Florida, what would you think about having, and I know when I went to the FBI Academy, they talked about police substations or sheriff substations, perhaps in businesses or in schools. Are you in favor of substations in schools? And what would you do about to prevent and stop school shootings? Specifically, would you arm former military and former law enforcement in your schools, and somehow try to get perhaps teachers who would be ready to do that? Would you be willing to arm teachers and train them?
He just asked me 3 questions.
That's
Let's see if I can follow. Okay, so substation in schools, absolutely. When I was the captain in Corvallis, Oregon, the Boys and Girls Club had a brand new facility opened up, and we, because of me, put an office in the school, into the Boys and Girls Club for the school resource officer, where the doors opened up to the gym. When I was police chief in Grass Valley, we put an officer in our alternative high school, which was less than 100 kids. It was very important for us, though, because those are the kids that needed to have mentoring. And you know what? Surprise to me, one of the kids said, I can come to school now. He told this to me, and I said, well, why? He goes, because I feel safe. He didn't feel safe before then. So yes, putting police officers on campus is essential, and my goal as sheriff is to create a regional team, because we don't have a lot of resources, and so regionally we can put one together and get effective in the schools. As far as safety in the schools, we need to prepare the schools. We need to work with the schools. California, believe it or not, has a great safety plan in place. It's called SB 187. It's a comprehensive plan that we work with the schools and the administrators, and we come up with the targeted areas that we need to address for the school year, such as bullying, such as cyberbullying, such as harassment. And we put a comprehensive plan together. But we also need to practice in the schools, not with deputies in their SWAT uniforms, but to teach the kids and the teachers what to do in case the unfortunate incident happens. We're not going to be immune. Nevada County is not going to be immune, so let's be prepared. Third question, arming the teachers and other people. The only dilemma with that is, you know what, we want our teachers to spend time teaching the kids, and that's going to take time away from them getting prepared for classroom. And then the training time is very challenging. You posed the question though, prior law enforcement. Well, that's a good idea. I think prior law enforcement training is not as much. But to train teachers on the use of deadly force and to be proficient on it, their job is to protect the kids. And who's going to protect the kids if they're going after an active shooter? So I would be a little uncomfortable with teachers being armed.
President Trump talked about that at CPAC, and he actually brought up, and I was actually standing out in the hall doing other interviews, and he said, former military, former police should be definitely trained who are already teaching. But I will tell you, as a teacher, kind of what you were saying, I don't want to be armed in the classroom. I don't. But I sure want one close by. And the best way I can protect those kids is to shoot the dadgum thugs trying to shoot all of my kids. But I would feel horrible being in there knowing that I could have done it and not have access to a weapon. I mean, it's just would be, the kids would be, we've talked about it, they all agree. Sheriff, we want you to be able to shoot somebody who's trying to kill us. You know, we want that. So it's a fine line. I agree with some of what the chief said on that. But like I say, I don't want any of the teachers to have it on their person. But could we put one in a strategic place and have it close by? Because what do we know about that? Maryland, the shooting there, just taught us somebody close with a gun. Now, it was a trained officer, and that's what you support. You know, I think most people in the schools that I know, most teachers, they could learn how to do it, and I think we could do it with a minimal interference of the school time. But the one sheriff in Ohio that started the training classes on his own, he couldn't keep them open long enough because they were getting filled by all the teachers who wanted to learn how to do it. And there were just droves of teachers who wanted to know how to do it. So I think there is probably a way to do it and find out if, according to the sheriff, when they're doing the training, there's some that aren't qualified, don't do it with them, okay? Do it with the ones who really do it. And you know what, women could shoot just as good as men, sometimes better, and that's a great equalizer. Your wife a better shot than you?
No, she is.
Better shot than me.
Oh, okay. That's not surprising. It's not. Okay. Sounds like we have a question for the guy running for DA on this one. So, what are you going to do about the corruption in the DA's office?
You know, I'm running for sheriff, similar to why Glenn Jennings is running for DA. A fresh perspective, somebody that has a vision for the sheriff's office or the DA's office, somebody that can bring what the community expects to the table is what people want. You want people you can trust. You want people that are transparent. You want people that meet what the needs are of the community. And bottom line, you want to know your county's safe. And so that's what I will bring, working with the DA's office. Glenn Jennings stepped up to the plate. And I'll tell you, when I first ran for sheriff, when I first announced for sheriff, Keith Rowe was running. I called him up, and we're colleagues, and I said, Keith, you're the second to know. My wife's the first. I'm running for sheriff. And he said, well, I'm running too. Have a nice day, Clint.
Wow.
And I said to myself, you know what? It's hard to beat an incumbent, but if I will make changes, whether or not I'm the sheriff or not, I will make changes to improve the sheriff's office, although I knew I was going to win. So the point being is that, you know, with Mr. Jennings here is he's got the courage to go against an incumbent, and hopefully the people of Nevada County will pick who they feel is their next DA.
Short answers on this one. There's three of them. Does the Supreme Court make law?
No.
Good. If all of you in your pocket constitution, if you'll open to page, right after the preamble, the very first line is, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. How many legislative powers? All. So these people, I've argued with attorneys on this. In fact, we have a couple of attorneys that teach school. They're actually teachers. And I said, but courts don't make law. Don't call it case law. And I said, they set precedent. And they adjudicate a case. Each one is done on a case-by-case basis. They do not make law. If there was law, then if I failed to read somebody the Miranda warning, I could go to jail. You know any officer never read a Miranda warning, went to jail, got charged with it? They get in trouble, they get disciplined by the sheriff. They don't go to jail. It's not breaking the law. It's breaking policy, maybe, but of the department. But no. Okay, one other. Where do our rights come from?
God.
You're keeping these short, Sheriff.
All in order, sir.
And I already answered this one, but I'll answer it anyway. I'll ask it anyway. What is the purpose of all government? Not you.
The purpose of government is to protect us and to obey God's laws for government.
Okay. Now, what did I say that my students had to memorize? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted. So, yeah, you got it. All right. Okay. You consider yourself an oath keeper?
Tell me what an oath keeper is.
Someone who keeps his oath to uphold and defend, protect, and preserve, and obey the U.S. Constitution.
That's my closing statement, so. You know, the sheriff is your only elected law enforcement person in the nation. And my job is to uphold and defend our constitutional rights. And so an oath keeper is, yes, and not only me, but also my deputies.
Let me
He's looking for that trick question.
No, actually, I don't understand this one because it is out of my purview. If you don't want this one, you don't have to answer it. I'll leave it to you. Please explain your position on the Mackey warrant fiasco. Did you have any involvement in it?
That's an issue within the sheriff's office. Now, of course I'll answer it. Because you want to hear it from me, because I need to get you to feel that you're confident to vote for me. I can't talk about issues within the sheriff's office as far as personnel issues, because I don't know everything that occurred. What I can tell you, as police chief, what I did was I held a high ethical standard. I hired people with good credentials. We supervised them, held them to the standards, and if they made mistakes, we hopefully corrected them. If they didn't correct the mistakes, then they were no longer employed. So what you want as sheriff is you want somebody that holds people to the highest ethical standards, that supervises them appropriately, that they follow policy, follow the Constitution, and those that don't, they need to go.
That one was a statement, wasn't a question, so I'm going to bypass that one. And that's it for the questions here. Oh, more are coming in. It's man in heaven. Okay.
I can be here all night.
Some of that. Actually, we have to be out by about 9 or so. And I have to start signing books about 8:30. But I have something to say about that too. Okay. Another one about the corrupt district attorney. You go on, dear Ken, where is it?
Richard, that was for me. Read. That was for me.
Yeah, I'll have you talk to him about it. How can... Okay, you take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of California and the Constitution of the United States. Back to the conflict that laws can present sometimes. Which one would supersede the other?
That's a hard question. The U.S. Constitution, in our oath, that's what it says, that we are upholding the U.S. Constitution, plus the state, but what supersedes the state is the U.S. Constitution.
You're here.
I agree. Yeah. The supreme law of the land requires an oath to the Constitution itself, and that's Article 6 of the Constitution. Founding Fathers wanted every public official, it says, legislative, judicial, and executive branches to all swear allegiance to the Constitution. Not to another form of government, not to another government, not to another individual in the government, but to the Constitution itself. Why? Because we perpetuate liberty that way. Yes. Oh, this is a good one. Hey, I should have asked this one. Will you join and become a member of the Constitutional Sheriff's Association? CSPOA.
You know, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it, but I will tell you that my job is to uphold and defend the Constitution. And in order to do that, there's wisdom in many counselors. And like I said previously, your organization provides that backing. You know, in law enforcement, what I found out is there's a lot of times you have difficult decisions to make as a leader. And when I had to go against my city council on issues that I felt were right, or I had to make a decision that wasn't the popular decision, but was the right decision. Before I did that, I sought counsel in wisdom from others. And so your organization provides me that wisdom. And so I would think that it would be remiss of me not to join your organization because, again, there's wisdom in many counselors.
I will tell you that we're not really big on membership as we are about changing behavior. That's what we're really after. Does the membership help with that? I'm sure it does. But membership isn't more important to us than someone who's actually standing and doing their job. Okay, so I want all of you to understand that. I want you to understand that. But we will be there for any sheriff, Democrat, Republican, or no party at all. If they're standing for the Constitution, we'll be there to stand with them. Okay? And we hope that all of you will be also. Well, thank you. That's all we have for tonight. I'm going to give him a chance for a closing statement, but that's all the questions tonight, and we've got to move on because I've got to give you this big old long lecture.
Wow. I'm still amazed at the presence here tonight, that you would show up to understand the roles and responsibilities of a sheriff and why it's important that you know that I work for you. You are my boss. I did have a couple notes that I'm going to refer to because I think it's important because we're talking about the Constitution, your rights, our rights as citizens. But now I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Each of you get a homework assignment, and I want you to report back to me. And John Adams pretty much says it best. I've said it in my way, but I'm going to say it in his way. He stated that we electors have an important constitutional power placed in our hands. You know what that is? The voters must investigate candidates serving office. And you know why? It's because you want to preserve the foundation of our nation, and individuals in office need to understand the Constitution and our foundation of government. The only way you can do that is research your candidates for every office. Sheriff is probably the most important office that you can do your background check on, because we're the ultimate authority when it comes to law enforcement in Nevada County. So what I would ask you to do is take a look at all this. But when you do, when you look at the three candidates, I'm going to remind you that I'm the only one who has true leadership experience for almost 18 years, making the final decisions on discipline, on hiring, on policies such as use of force, on community policing activities. And my track record speaks for itself. The other candidates, I'm not sure that they rise to that because they haven't been in a number one position. You make that decision. Also education, experience, training. Take a look at that. Also take a look at our vision, our plan to keep you safe, our plan to keep Nevada County the best place possible to live, work, and play. And then finally, once you do your background check and you take a look at the three of us, I respectfully ask you to vote for John Foster for sheriff because I will meet your needs and you'll be proud that I'm your sheriff because I have your back. Thank you.
We're actually not on break yet, but if you're going over to give a donation to the chief, then please do.
Did you break it, Shell?
The light seems to be fading.
Takes a minute to warm up.
She could also like.
I can grab the other one then. Kids
Oh,
won't like it.
it's right here by. Yeah.
Okay, we don't have very much longer. This is going to be about, I'm just going to give you a real brief trailer of what I'll be doing Sunday, right, in, where am I going to be? Live Oak. Church of Glad Tidings. Okay, and it's not going to go till 4 because I'll be leaving the airport about 3:30, so it'll probably be about a 4-hour presentation. And that's really what the time I need on this. So we obviously don't have the time tonight to do too much, but I do want to show you a couple of things. One thing that happened right here in California that I do want to show you, and I do want you to see it, and I just don't know where I should stand, so maybe I'll stand over here, because I definitely want you to see this. It's good stuff. Okay. All right, so go ahead and play that. I hope we can hear there. If not, I'll bring this over there and see if we can. You should just be able to hit spacebar.
The YouTube video going viral, posted on the internet by two activists who brought a camera into the Albany International Airport while they passed out flyers. Now, it led to a heated dispute over First Amendment rights. Beth Wortman has our top story. Beth?
Hi, Benita. Well, as you'll see in the video clip, an airport spokesman tries to stop these activists from their mission, but a sheriff's deputy steps in to settle the confrontation and the right to free speech.
So, hey everyone, this is Ashley Jessica. I am here at Albany International Airport.
The young woman is standing outside the security checkpoint at the airport, telling the camera that she's there to hand out flyers to travelers, reminding them of their right to opt out of getting the body scan, which she claims carries health risks.
Okay. It's on your website.
Hold on. First of all, turn this off right away.
Airport spokesman Doug Myers tells the crew to stop videotaping and to go downstairs, which they agree to do, and they are confronted again.
Do you have $1 million insurance policy here? You're violating the airport authority guidelines. That doesn't matter to us at all, okay?
So the chief said it doesn't matter?
No, you're in our airport.
But as the tension builds, Sheriff's Deputy Stan Lennox steps in, separating the two parties, then lays down the law.
Obviously, this is your constitutional right, okay? As far as we're concerned, you're not breaking any laws, okay? That's what we want to get across to you guys.
Myers objects, ordering airport employees to allow only ticketed passengers upstairs, accusing the activists of blocking the escalator. But once again, Deputy Lennox defends their First Amendment right.
Okay, so that means we're doing it for, I told you what, I am Jason Burris.
Let me see your identification.
I don't need to show you my identification.
He doesn't have to show you his identification.
The activists continue their mission. The video later posted to YouTube and goes viral. Not the kind of attention Deputy Lennox is used to.
That's a little overwhelming. I mean, I was doing my job. I did the right thing. I felt I did the right thing, protecting people's First Amendment rights.
This is all we are after. At the CSPOA, we want our officers trained to know that they are to defend the constitutional rights of that person. How many times would this have gone crazy bad? That the deputy comes in, show me your identification, show him, you didn't do what you told, he told you to go here, you're trespassing, and they would have been arrested. But this deputy had a sheriff. Do you know when he came down and he said, we want you to know this is your constitutional right? We want you to know that you haven't broken any laws. He called somebody first. And he called the supervisor. I don't know if he talked to his sheriff, but these guys knew the law, and it's called the Constitution. And they knew what his job was. The CSPOA, that's all we want. We want deputies to enforce the Constitution. This could have escalated to something really horrible. He did his job, he did what was right, he was right. And so this was the only time that the CSPOA, the same year that we made Clark our Sheriff of the Year, we made Deputy Stan Lennox our Deputy Sheriff of the Year. We've only had one so far. We're trying to get a lot more. Okay? Okay, now, this is another one, and this happened right here in Stockton, California. Go. Space.
Sorry.
Space.
Now to a News 10 exclusive. A Stockton man wants an apology tonight for a wake-up call he should have never received. It is a story you'll only see on News 10. Lee Painter tells us why police and federal agents knocked down his door.
This is what they did to my door.
At 6 this morning, a SWAT team surprised Kenneth Wright at his front door.
In my underwear. In my underwear. Before I get to the door, I hear him say, hit it. And I get ready to hit the door, and they hit the door. They almost hit me. So I said, hold on. They hit it again. I said, hold on.
But the SWAT team busted in, taking Wright.
They come grab me by my neck and drag me out my house to right there in the grass.
Thrown to the ground and handcuffed, law enforcement then searched his house.
And they put me in the backseat of a police car for over 6 hours. From 6 o'clock to 12:30. They had me handcuffed in the back of a police car with nothing on but my ripped up underwear that they ripped in the yard.
Wright says they also woke his 3 children, holding them for 2 hours. But they failed to find their quarry, Wright's estranged wife. Wright later complained to Stockton's mayor and police, but the city pointed to the U.S. Department of Education.
They say you owe a student
So
loan.
he's showing the warrant there. He's showing the warrant. Did you hear what he just said? I may have covered it up. Student loan. They had a no-knock warrant on this man's home because of his wife not paying back a student loan. She didn't even live there anymore. So I want to ask every sheriff candidate in this state, if the federal government comes into your county and is trying to serve a warrant because they're now using the U.S. Marshals SWAT team to collect on student loans, are you going to let that happen?
That better be
Quick answer over there, where'd our sheriff candidate go? So, I think we know the answer from Chief Foster, but then this news agency in Stockton follows up, and you can see this video on YouTube, by the way. Just put in there, Stockton man raided by Department of Education SWAT team. Department of Education SWAT team.
That's why they need to.
That's how stupid this is getting, folks. And then they said, they had some head guy go, oh, well, we obviously, the Solicitor General's office said, we don't raid homes over student loans.
Yeah.
Okay? So then, guess what? Then, find the one where the special agent in charge of the U.S. Marshal's office in Houston, they did it again there to another black guy. Funny how we never heard Al Sharpton say anything about how this abuse is to stop. Why? Because it was Barack Obama's administration. That's why all of this is. And we need to get the message to Trump. We don't want any more Barack Obama leftovers happening in our country. Brain is gone. Two typical examples of what we want and what we don't want. And Stockton PD actually just went along with this. Okay? We should never go along with this. And that's what we have not trained our law enforcement officers, especially in California, to do. And we have some sheriffs, candidates especially, and some sheriffs hiding cowardly against this whole idea of being a constitutional sheriff. Why? All we're asking you to do is keep your oath. Keep your word. Follow the law, the supreme law of the land. And this would not be happening. And I guarantee you, this should not be happening. Boy, wouldn't you love if somebody owed you money to send a federal SWAT team in on it? Okay, next one. Next one. Go again. Okay. There are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first one to advocate obeying just laws. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Now, guess who said that?
Martin Luther King.
Change it. Martin Luther King. Everybody in the audience usually says I do, and when I show this to my students, they always say I did. No, Martin Luther King, and I totally agree with him. I love this comment. He is absolutely correct, and it disarms the other side, doesn't it? And I'm going to show just maybe 3 or 4 more of these. Go next one. This is the oath of office. It is required by Article 6, go, keep going. Oh, man. Wish you guys could see. This is the best movie ever about the oath of office. It's clear and present danger. Watch it. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Oh, man. I love state nullification. Man, oh, man. Did Sheriff Mack make up state nullification? Well, I only wish I was as smart as the guys who did. This was a response, state nullification was a response from Jefferson and Madison, yes, in regards to John Adams' support of the Alien and Sedition Act, which arrested people for talking bad about the president. A founding father supporting that. Maybe that's why he only stayed in one term. Probably it. But Madison and Jefferson said, we don't have to go and beg Congress to make a law to nullify that. The states can nullify it. And they wrote resolutions to do so. Okay, keep going. States should refuse to enforce laws which they deemed unconstitutional. Why? Because we're the boss. Keep going. And the key word here is interpose, just like Sheriff Rogers did. Interpose on behalf of the people. Do you know what interpose is? Put yourself in the way, just like Sheriff Rogers did when the FDA was going after his Amish farmers. Keep going. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I read that earlier. Keep going. This was the threat. Go back one. This was the threat of arrest. We were threatened with arrest, and this is in the Brady Bill. It's right out of the Brady Bill, and it says that we could be under separate provision of the Gun Control Act. That was the Gun Control Act of 1968, pursuant to all the assassinations in the 60s. Knowingly violates the section of the GCA amended by the Brady Bill, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for no more than 1 year or both. That was the threat of arrest I told you about. I would not have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. But this is all part of the Brady Bill regulations and threats that they made to us. Okay, keep going. There's so much more to talk about that, but I know it's a long evening, and I still want you to meet with Chief Foster and talk to him and give his wife a hug. And I'm going to talk about some other things on that too in just a minute. Keep going. Keep going. This is Thomas Paine. Man, I love Thomas Paine. He gave a quote about the IRS from the tax system from Ronald Reagan, who assailed our tax system. Keep going. I know this. Jennifer Long testified against the IRS. She was an IRS employee, blew the whistle, told about how they were fabricating evidence against innocent citizens who they knew could not afford to defend themselves. That's what the IRS was doing. Why would any sheriff allow the IRS unfettered access to citizens in this county? They are a criminal organization. They've committed crime after crime after crime. How many times do we have to have another IRS hearing to talk about all their crimes? Lois Lerner committed all these crimes. What did she say? If they want to ever audit me, I'm quoting Lois Lerner. I have done nothing wrong and I plead the fifth. Goodbye. She went home and enjoyed her retirement. That's it. She doesn't get to claim the Fifth Amendment. Why? Because she's a federal employee and she has to answer for her job. Okay? Keep going. Oh, this one. Love it. Okay? How about all these righteous indignation sheriffs and officers and others running for sheriff who just think it's horrible that you could be listening to this crazy Sheriff Mack. Okay? Sheriff Mack has never committed any crime like this. Ever. And I'm outraged that not one of these DA agents ever got prosecuted, fired, or disciplined. This is out of USA Today, March 27, 2015. The cartel supplied the prostitutes to numerous DEA agents. Why are they down in Colombia? They're supposed to be fighting the drug war. And they're taking bribes in the form of prostitutes from the cartels. And how long did this go on? 4 years. DEA agents did this sort of thing. They had another hearing. Trey Gowdy's pointing his finger at the supervisor of the director of the DEA. Why do we trust any of these? And has the FBI ever committed any crimes?
Oh my God.
Why don't we just talk about Ruby Ridge and ask how many they committed?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about Waco and ask how many? It looked like they were going to get away with Waco until finally they told us all along that they never used pyrotechnic devices. Remember Waco? Yes, this was 1993, but they lied for about 3 years. Said, we didn't start the fire. David Korsh did. He had a suicide pact with everybody in there. I interviewed 5 people who were out in there. Sheila Martin, who lost all her children and her husband inside there. She said, that wasn't David Korsh. We had no fact. If David Korsh just killed your kids, you think you'd be defending him? She wouldn't. David Thibodeau, talked to him. He was the drummer in the band. Clive Doyle and his mother, talked to her about them. Clive Doyle lost his daughter in there. He said, there was no suicide pact. Really? And then we find out that the FBI lied about pyrotechnic devices being used there that day because they were in an evidence locker mislabeled as miscellaneous. They lied. No one ever gets in any trouble with those. No one ever did. These were crimes. Recently, the Bundys are released from prison after being denied a fair and speedy trial. They're released by Judge Gloria Navarro, who was a tyrant herself and acting as a co-prosecutor. She sees the evidence of their complaints about the prosecutors and federal agents. She releases them and drops all the charges, and they're out. What about the 2 years they had to spend in prison unjustifiably? She said, you know why? And I quote, they were released because, quote, prosecutorial misconduct.
And yet we're nothing happened to Stephen Meyer. Nothing happened to the prosecutors.
I know. And nothing happens to these people who committed these crimes. And they had committed crimes. They falsified evidence. They hid exculpatory evidence. They created evidence to make it look like they committed a crime that they never committed. And yet, nobody gets in trouble. Not DEA agents, not FBI agents, not prosecutors, not judges, nothing. I got another one to tell you about right here. This little can. I've been helping an Amish farmer in Kentucky, and I can't get one person, not one Republican. I marched through the halls of Congress for 3 days straight. Went back 2 months later to do the same thing. Talked to all the members of the Liberty Caucus, Republicans. Talked to Rand Paul's people. Talked to Rand Paul in person just 3 weeks ago when he came to Arizona to campaign for Kelly Ward for the Senate. And I asked him about this guy. I've talked to these people till I blew in the face. The FDA arrests this Amish farmer by the name of Sam Gerard because he makes a salve out of chickweed. I didn't even know what chickweed was. Maybe some of you herbologists do. But I use it all the time. And I even have some of my students use it. It helps with abrasions and maybe little moles or whatever. And I love it. But when he got sentenced after being found guilty of 13 felonies, the judge said, I'm sentencing him to 72 months in prison because he's obstinate.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. And he failed to register with the FDA. My dear friends, if we're going to do the things that Hitler and Lenin and Stalin did in this country, then we will reap the reward. That is evil. It is wrong. Stalin, Hitler, and Lenin, Castro, and many of these other dictators throughout the 20th century did what? They killed people that got in their way, or they put them in prison.
That's right.
And we're doing it now to an Amish farmer. Never committed a crime in his life, but because he was obstinate. And ladies and gentlemen, I was there when he was sentenced. I've been to his home. He handed me this. And that man should not be there. And not one single Republican that I have contacted, and I did about 65 of them, would lift a finger for this man. Not one. Including Rand Paul. And that's his constituent. So if you want to help, I still believe Rand Paul's a good man. I do. I talked to Ron about it too. Rand, when I talked to him, actually told me that his dad had talked to him because I had talked to him. I paid $250 to go to a dinner fundraiser for Kelly Ward, who I know, she's a pretty good candidate. And so I could just talk to Rand Paul in person, because I just talked to his staff before that. This should not be happening in America, my friends. And we need constitutional sheriffs all across this country to stand and stop this. Because if the federal government won't do it, we need to. And the sheriff there should have protected this guy better. He was actually pretty good. I met with him too. And he sent them a letter that I composed and told them to leave him alone. Well, they sneaked into his county and hauled him off anyway. It was Bath County, Kentucky. And he was tried in Lexington. And I would not miss his sentencing. It was last summer, June 30th. He got 72 months. And when I looked at his wife afterwards, all I could do is tell her I was sorry. She was crying and so was I. Amish farmer. And when the prosecutor came out, I looked her right in the face and I said, for God's sake, he's an Amish farmer. And you're going to use this as a victory in your career. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get back to the Constitution. We've got to get back to American ideals. That's all this is about. Let's love America. Let's love our neighbor. Sam Gerard, who is his neighbor? We all do. If you read the story about the Good Samaritan, we all are. And we have failed him. And we have got to we've got to remind President Trump and those that work with him that we really want that swamp drained. And we cannot leave Amish farmers in prison on stuff like this and then claim that we're draining the swamp. I believe in Trump. I'm glad he's there. You can only imagine what it would have been like if he wasn't.
Oh my God.
But we have got to do a lot more. And I am totally encouraged by the candidate that we had here tonight. Now, I'm going to close with this. We really need members in the CSPOA. We need to grow it. We need to make it bigger. We are the only agency in the United States that has put together an effort to get innocent people out of prison. We believe there are hundreds, if not thousands, especially IRS victims. And we want this commission formed to get all these people's names before the president so he can start issuing pardons. We know that pardons can be granted. I was actually told by the Justice Department, a specialist lawyer who would never give his name on his emails to me, never gave his name, he said you can only give a pardon to somebody who's been in prison 5 years. That's what he told me. How long had Sheriff Joe Arpaio been in prison when he got his pardon? Zero. The president can pardon whoever he wants. And that's a fact. And that's what I told them, again, a lawyer. That's what I told him. And I got no response. I'm getting very little help. And we're needing your help. So join the CSPOA. You can do it over here. You can get some of the best books in America about freedom and liberty that are over on my table that I have authored. I don't have anybody write my books for me. I write all my own books. I don't have ghostwriters. But I'm going to tell you one other thing too. As much as we need all that, as much as we need to grow that, as much as I need to sell books, I want your first money to go to Chief Foster. It's expensive to run a campaign. I believe in him for being here tonight. I believe in the person that he is. I believe in him and his good wife. Make your first donation there. My dear friends, this is the holy cause of liberty that we're involved in. Let's make it happen. Do any of you think it's going to happen without sacrifice? No. It costs time and it costs money. I'm proud of Chief Foster for running. I'm proud of him for being here tonight. Chief, any way that we can help you, let us know. God bless you, brother. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.